Mark, hello, and thank you for joining us.
You bet. It's great to be here.
Thank you, thank you. As you know, we're not going out into the world anymore with Westminster residents, so we decided to have a program that's called Bringing the World to You, and thank you for participating in that. How are you?
Well, I'm really delighted to be participating. I have a fond place in my heart for Westminster, so I'm glad to participate and share.
Wonderful. Can you tell us more why you have a fond place in your heart?
Well, as it turns out, I early in my life, I moved to St. Petersburg in 1970 when I was in high school. My father got a job teaching at Eckerd College, and so I believe my junior year in high school, I got a job working at the kitchen of what was then called Sunny Shores. Sunny Shores was a Methodist home, and I think I got the job because there was a connection between various faculty kids who helped sort of staff the place. So there were quite a number of my friends who were also kids of faculty members who worked either in the dining room or in the kitchen. Much of my time was spent as a pot washer, which was the lowest spot on the totem pole. But you got to do what you got to do. The dining room was located, it was a one-story building right on the water, so it was a lovely view. Not that we had it in the kitchen. And it was mostly composed of the waterfront villas, the low villas.
Mm-hmm.
And only over time did the footprint and size of the buildings evolve. And of course, it was just a delight to me when a number of years later, the movie Cocoon came along and was Sunny Shores was the setting of a number of the scenes there.
Yes, yes.
And then in the late 1990s, my mom and dad decided that it was time for them to leave their home in Pinellas Park and spent a couple of years in the Allen building, and then were fortunate enough to get a waterfront home right on the waterfront that became my mom and dad's great joy for their final years there. My dad was there for about 10 years, and my mom lived there for about another 10.
Yes, as you know, I know your mom well, and it was always a joy to see her and always a joy to visit her. And I remember, and you mentioned Eckerd College, so I'm delighted to hear that there was even a connection way back when. And you might know that Westminster Shores and Westminster in general has a very wonderful connection with Eckerd College. You know, the lifelong learning program with Eckerd has just been wonderful for the last 5 years.
And what I would add to that was my experience of going on to attend Eckerd. In fact, taking one of two majors that I had. I had a combined major, and one of them was with my father.
Ooh.
And so one of the principles or mottos that were associated with Eckerd at the time was really learning how to learn. So you mentioned lifelong learning. I feel like I got my foundation there. And to use a characterization or an adage that lifelong learning is really all about the question. It's not about the answer. So I learned a lot in my time about how do you ask really powerful questions.
Wow, wonderful. I hope my questions will be powerful as well. So, Mark, so we know a little bit about your history now, and as I mentioned, I met your mom early on because your dad was at Eckerd College. So when we started the program, I was connected to everyone who had a connection with Eckerd. And I remember her telling me that you were actually a student with your dad, but that in the classes, really nobody knew that he was your dad. That kind of was impressive to me.
That was the only thing that was really difficult, was not calling him Dad in class. I had to learn to call him Jay. And we haven't said yet, but we're talking about Jay and Jean Johnson.
Yes. Oh, we haven't said that yet. Well,
not yet.
Yeah. Not every resident at Westminster Shores will
Sure.
knows your mom, but I think the majority of them knew and loved your mom. So, Mark, how are you dealing with the situation we are in right now? Personally, professionally, what has changed in your life?
Well, I work for a very unusual company, and I'm going to tie it back to my mom and dad, which is I was born in Thailand and lived there till I was 10. My mom and dad had very strong international associations. My dad has a master's degree from American University in Beirut, for example. And so it was really in my blood to be very world conscious.
Mhm.
And in 2008, I was looking for a new job, and one opened up with a company in Tampa called Sykes. And Sykes has 55,000 employees in 20 countries.
Oh, wow.
As an example, we have 15,000 employees in the Philippines. And what Sykes does is we provide call center services on behalf of other companies.
Mhm.
So if you are calling Bank of America, it's possible you're speaking to a Sykes employee who's working on behalf of Bank of America.
I
And we
see.
have about 200 of these companies that we serve. So I was very intrigued by this opportunity because of the opportunity to interact with people around the globe. We have operations in Latin America, um, Asia, North America, and Europe.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
as a matter of fact, I actually have a team, lead a team, who are composed of a colleague in Edinburgh, Scotland, somebody in Tampa, somebody in Seattle, and somebody in Manila. And so we have been meeting ongoingly using Zoom, this technology that many people have recently become familiar with. I've been using it daily, often multiple times a day for 4 to 5 years,
Mhm.
and profound impact on how we work together. So to answer the question about how is this affecting me, in two ways that are interesting. One is that I've increasingly begun working from home simply because it was possible and there was not a need for me to be in the office. And increasingly in the corporate headquarters, it's become common for people to work from home to some degree. Um, so with this recent change, it was not a huge change for many people to get used to being at home a good deal.
Mhm.
The flip side of it is that we've been on my job, I've been involved in an initiative to help the company move many employees who are working in call centers, physical call centers, are located around the globe, and to enable them to move to work at home if it was possible. And as you can imagine, doing it, it's one thing to do it in the US, it's another in the Philippines. So the team member that I have in the Philippines, she has three other brothers who all work in the call center world in the Philippines, where call centers are huge now,
Mhm.
and everybody's working from home. We're
Wow.
talking much smaller homes. So my team has been engaged in providing resources and helping people to adapt to this work at home scenario. Not so much on the technical side, of which there are many challenges, but more on the human and relationship side, and understanding and giving people awareness about the variety of challenges and feelings and opportunities that come with this kind of circumstance. So it's incredibly satisfying. There have been miracles worked around the world. Um, Literally 1,000 employees in Colombia, South America, for example, are working from home now, who 2 months ago were working in the office.
Wow.
That's huge.
That's
So
incredible.
that's been a big part of my life, and it's amazing for me to be able to collaborate with people around meaningful issues like being able to sustain people's work life.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, people working from home now, I've heard from friends when the kids are home too. I mean, suddenly from everybody being somewhere else, kids in school, husband, wife, partners all working in different places, and now suddenly they're all home. Do you have colleagues that have challenges with that?
Yeah, two things. One is two of my my team members actually have kids working from home, and it's remarkably common. Now, I couldn't tell you whether it's a third or what the proportion is, at least among the several hundred folks who work out of the headquarters, but it's certainly not uncommon. And basically, it's one of those things where to do anything other than to go, listen, this is a challenging time, so do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, the key is in every case is we ask people to figure out what really works for you. An example is my colleague in Seattle. She actually has gotten used to joining 9 a.m. phone calls here in Tampa, but it's 6 a.m. for her. So she gets up at 5 and she's adapted to that and is fine with that. However, come 9 o'clock her time, noon ours, she needs to break away and supervise and support her kids in doing their schoolwork. So it's all a matter of finding out what really works for you and then adapting to making that work for the business as well. And frankly, it's practical and real, but it's also really meaningful when people appreciate that, listen, we're just going to figure out what works and take care of everybody in this process as best we can.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful that you approach it that way. Well, thank you. That was really, one question that comes up a lot nowadays is too that, now that a lot of people have to work from home, companies might be more open, to the notion of people working from home. I mean, I can see that opens and in like a lot of doors where maybe first people think people don't work as much if they're home, but frankly, I have experienced it myself and others too, that you get a lot done when you're working from home. So,
Interestingly, the research actually shows that at least for certain types of professional work, the bigger challenge is people don't have boundaries and they tend to work too hard. So we have written up a set of guidelines and suggestions, and one of them is you really need to figure out when you start and when you stop, and how you fully kind of embed that. And secondly, that it's really important to take breaks, because when you're at home full time, it may be necessary to go just take a 10-minute walk. It's not like you're heading out for lunch like you might do in the office. So there's no question that there is going to be a post-pandemic different mindset around work from home globally. And the one kind of concern, and it was present in our business before, is, well, how do you know people are actually working?
yeah,
The truth of the matter is, people who are committed and clear about what their goals are, that they work hard. And there's no more concern about that than there is about people not working when they're in the office. So in the long run, it's going to have a very positive effect.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. So that's part of your professional life. Now, I know you have another part that is very meaningful to you, and it's incredibly meaningful to the city of St. Petersburg.
Well, and I can relate this back to, in fact, family and my parents and my father in particular. My father taught community and organizational development, and I developed a passion for it. And their whole lives had been committed to community development. It's the kind of work they did when they were in Thailand for 10 years. So I have a passion and an appreciation for what it means to contribute to a community that works. So in 2002, I was in a relationship with a woman who, along with other folks, were giving a third attempt to start a farmer's market in St. Pete. The
Mhm.
two previous attempts had not worked out. Very common scenario in the world of farmers markets of attempts to do this and running into issues. And after a few months, it was getting really challenging. The people who were involved in the grassroots effort often wanted to vend, but they didn't really want to do a bunch of work. Well, I started helping out and really got the bug, and saw very clearly what the impact on vendors and the community was. And so, over the course of the first 5 years, in my hobby, spare time, um, put enormous amount of effort into it. By the second year, we were the largest market in the Tampa Bay area. By the third year, we were the largest market in Florida. And by my assessment, by the fifth year, we were the largest market in the Southeast US.
Wow.
I would say that in the current scenario, from just a size standpoint, we're in the easily the top 1% of the 7,000 or so markets in the country.
Hmm.
But
All
what was
right.
really different about this market was we had a very different conception as to what we wanted this market to be. Most markets are focused on trying to get farm food into the available to folks in the city and to create a really pleasant shopping experience. We wanted to do those things, but ironically, here in Florida, it's an agribusiness associated state. That is to say, farmers who are growing 500 acres of two things. And it's not a scenario where you have small farms growing many vegetables or other products that they would bring. So finding farmers to come to farmers markets has been incredibly difficult. And we didn't really succeed in a notable way until our about seventh year.
Hmm.
So, but we always had a vision about the farmers market being a community experience. And so I'm going to describe several things that we had in our vision that are very uncommon. And if you've been to the Saturday morning market, you'll recognize these things that create an experience that's unlike more than 99% of markets in the US.
Some technical glitches there. I was suddenly thrown out. I think it's very windy, and that might have been it. We don't quite know how and when we were disconnected, but Mark, you were talking about the market and the unique qualities of the St. Petersburg Saturday morning market, in that
So
it's not. Go
I'll
ahead.
pick up and describe three things that I identify being at the core of this being an incredible social experience, frankly, unlike not only other markets, but other types of public events. And so the first of these is that we focused from the beginning to have a great selection of vendors who sell food that you would eat right away. We call it ready to eat food. And by our assessment, we think we have the broadest variety and quality of international food of any market in the United States. We have 14 or 15 countries or styles of food. So you can eat Mexican, Caribbean, Ethiopian, Ecuadorian, German, Thai, etc. So wonderful vendors who are doing a great job there. So people know to come to market hungry. And as a result, they will buy food in addition to their shopping. We also have at least 3 times as much seating space as any major market in the United States. It's not easy to do. We have a large storage shed and many staff who come and set up all those tables and chairs. And as a result, people love to hang out. Amazingly, even though we have all those tables and chairs, people say you don't have enough. So it's a
Good
good thing.
problem.
Um, and then the third thing is that we work really hard to have very fun and diverse music that is relatable by a cross section of people. So, it could be Celtic or it could be Cajun, it could be blues, a really nice cross section of music. So many people, as a result, describe coming to market as being the highlight of their week. And in fact, the biggest compliment we get from people who say they actually moved to St. Petersburg because of the Saturday morning market It exemplifies the sense of community that we all want and look for in the towns that we live in. So our byline is that we're the heart of St. Petersburg. And
Wonderful.
we mean that metaphorically, that people literally feel like it's the place where the town comes alive for them. And we think that people interact with one another at the market in a way that doesn't occur anyplace else. That is, they will talk to strangers in line because it just feels like a friendly place. So that's been an enormously gratifying and marvelous effort on our part to create this kind of heart of St. Petersburg experience.
Oh, I can testify to that. Certainly coming to the market and sitting down, having a coffee, listening to music, people just asked, are these chairs available? And you start talking to people that might be visitors from out of town and talk about how great St. Petersburg is. And what you said is true. I encountered, actually, it was in the line waiting for coffee, somebody saying this market is motivating them to move to St. Petersburg because any city that can has a market like this and sustains a market like that must be a great place. So congratulations, Mark. That sounds wonderful. Now, we all know right now there is no Saturday morning market in the usual way. So if you would share a little bit what's going on there, I think that is very interesting and wonderful
Yeah.
to know.
Well, and I'll start with just contrasting from a vendor point of view what the normal scenario is, which is we have about 180 vendors who rotate through about 130 spaces. Also, an unusual strategy on our part that is not common in farmers markets is we have many part-time, particularly craft vendors. And so it provides lots of diversity. And certainly we have many vendors who've been with us from the early days, and their participation in the market is such that they are experiencing their dream vending. Most of them never imagined this market would become as big and successful as it is. And for many of them, it's a core part of their income and what they're up to. So we're delighted by that, and then facing the situation where they've lost their income. And so many of them are struggling very significantly right now. We did see an opportunity to adapt in an unusual fashion, and that is that we have about 5 or 6 farmers who do provide a variety of produce, et cetera, and we adapted by creating a drive-through market. And the way it works is that there's a history in the small farm world of people buying a weekly share, as it's called, a veggie share, from a farm. And they do it at the beginning of the season, and you would then pick up your share every week. And it helps the farmer finance the expenses early in the season. So we use that principle, and these farmers are selling a box or a share, a basket as it were, and they buy it online, pay for it online. So the way this works is that the customers do that during the week, and they show up at Saturday morning market, drive in. We assure that they have made the purchase that they did, and then direct them to the location where the farm stand is. And they literally just drive up, the basket gets put in their back seat, and they drive off. So it meets all of the requirements associated with safe distancing and that sort of thing. We also have an online market where we enable multiple vendors, most of them food vendors, to upload product. And it's a single platform where you might buy some bread, some cheese, a variety of food products. On the morning of market, that all gets consolidated into a bag, and you would drive up and pick up that, having purchased it in advance.
Wow, what a wonderful idea.
It's really making a difference. Several farmers are a huge impact. I mean, this is the spring growing season. They have a lot of produce which otherwise would be plowed under.
Yeah.
So it's meaningful for them. We know customers love getting fresh, healthy food, um, and it meets the requirements. The drawback is it's probably 5% of our vendors who are actually in a position to participate.
Mm.
So we wish we could do more, but we
Yeah.
know that this is making a big difference. So we have literally hundreds of cars driving through market between 9 and noon every Saturday.
What a great idea. I mean, how wonderful that, I mean, for both sides, for the farmers to not have to, let their food go to spoil, and then for people to still get the wonderful fresh and organic vegetables and fruits and flowers and whatever is for sale. That's wonderful. What a great service to the community. And I know and I can see how passionate you are about it. So this is great, Mark. Thank you so.
We're looking ahead now at how to design market to adapt to what we anticipate to be the future requirements, like distancing and minimizing. So we're going to have to temporarily stop the things that make market unique in terms of tables and seating space and hanging out for a long time. The focus will go back to just the shopping experience, and being in and out, but having conventional stands, but distanced farther, etc. So that's what we're anticipating occurring at some point, until much further down the road and things go back to something that might look like normal.
Yeah. I think people talking about the new normal, we're not going to be in the old normal, but that we will. And it's wonderful how people come up with all these creative ideas. It's warming my heart to see, for example, the market, that you just didn't stop it, but found ways to continue in a different way. So, and as we do, this Zoom interview would not have happened without this situation. So we're making the best out of it. And I'm really happy that you shared your time with us and shared all this information. I know a lot of our residents love the Saturday morning market. In fact, we always have trips to the Saturday morning market. And we're looking forward to continuing that in any way and fashion we will be able to. So thank you, Mark.
You're welcome, and we look forward to it as well. And
I am
and
so
know that
glad.
it's a wonderful experience for the Shores residents.
Great. And thanks for sharing your wonderful connection and long connection with Westminster Shores.
It's delightful.
Thank you, Mark.
Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.